think that we all have our struggles and everyone has their own situations and things that we go through. But stepping back from that and being able to look outside of that at the big picture is something that's great. And then I think Pretty Focus has been a constant reminder of that, because I wouldn't have been able to do this back home, and I have this tool available, and now I feel like the future is bright. I feel like I'm working towards a goal and I can actually do it.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode. We are talking with Daniella today. I said it right.
Yeah, perfect.
I did it, just rolled
Love
off.
that.
Daniella, or Danny, she's a Pretty Focused grad, and she went from being a costume designer and event photographer to just, really just like reignited your passion for photography, through food
Yeah,
photography, right? So
absolutely.
and now you are working, towards building your food photography business. But we're going to talk with her about, where she was just a few years ago to where she is now and why food photography. And so why don't you kind of take us back a couple of years ago, maybe before you heard about Pretty Focused, and what you were doing.
All right. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me here. I'm very, very excited. I was just telling Melody this is like a full circle moment being able to do this grad interview, so I'm very happy. So a couple of years ago, my story is kind of a long one that is better told with some beer or something, or some coffee or some crackers, but I'm going to try to make it short for this one. So basically, I immigrated from Venezuela. I spent some time in Mexico and I got trapped during COVID. And I was in that situation. I was there as a tourist and I had to figure something out, and all the borders were closed. And the Venezuelan border was even more closed because if you're familiar with Venezuela, we have a tricky kind of political situation. So I couldn't go back home, but I also needed to leave Mexico because I was there on a, short stay visa. So I ended up coming to the United States with my aunt who lives here, and I was only supposed to be here for a couple months, and I ended up being able to apply for my paperwork and everything, so I stayed here. Now, it's important to say, before I came to the United States, I was in Venezuela working as a custom designer for film and television. I did photography. I worked for a newspaper over there, and I also did events, weddings, all that good stuff. So I was very much in a creative environment, but having made that transition and immigrating here to the States, I was in a situation where I was like, okay, I have to figure something out, because I came here and I had $0 in my pocket. I didn't know anyone other than the family that I was staying with. So I had to survive, basically. So I had to put my career aside and started working with a company who I still work with today. They're amazing. I started as customer service and I've kind of grown with them. And right now I'm business development manager with them. I'm still working there. But then like about a year ago, before I came across Pretty Focused, I was feeling like, okay, so I've been here in the States for a few years. I have a steady job. I'm able to kind of figure out what I want to do in the next stage of my life, right? I'm no longer in survival mode. I can figure out what's next. And I knew that I wanted to return to my creative passion of photography and maybe custom design or something. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So that was kind of my situation. I was in a place of, what are we going to do next? What do I want to do professionally? And do I still want to continue with this business development manager career, or do I want to do something else? And the answer was no, definitely no. I'm not a business salesy, and I work with real estate agents, so it's a very different world to what I was used to. So yeah, I came to that point.
Wow. So, okay. So keep going. You were like, okay, I can get my feet back. Like you were in survival mode for so long. Tell me, were you able to go back home like after COVID settled? You haven't been back.
I haven't been back. I've been in the States for 4 years, and in Mexico, I was there for about almost a year. So I've been away from home 5 years in total. So I haven't been able to go back and, see my parents, my little sisters over there, which is really rough. But it's, a new stage, and it's all towards building a better future, because, things back home in Venezuela are not great. And that was one of the things that I didn't think that I was leaving not to return. I always thought that it was going to be temporary, but I really wanted to see what else was out there and what other opportunities I had, just because of some situations that happened back home where I went from working and being shooting movies and shooting video clips and being busy to not doing anything. So I was like, okay, I need to leave and figure this out. And then when I did that, COVID hit. So I was like, oh my God, now I really got to figure something out. It was a rough transition.
So, like, what did you do in Mexico while you're just hanging out? Like, were you able to work there? Were you like, what was that
So
like?
Uh, I so I came to Mexico because before that I was in Guatemala doing a photography workshop with Nat Geo, which was amazing. And then I was like, if I'm leaving Venezuela to do this workshop, which is expensive, and I gotta buy tickets and all this situation, I need to make that trip longer. So I have family in Mexico, and they were like, come over, you stay with us for a while, you'll figure it out. So I went to Mexico, and I started being there, starting to get to know people, started to do maybe some little works there, jobs here and there for video clips and stuff like that. And that's when COVID hit. So the momentum kind of died. And
Yeah.
funny enough, during that time, I did the quarantine or the majority of quarantine in a town called Guadalajara.
Yep.
And I was there with my grandma and my cousin. My grandma is a baker, so I've always had bacon in my life because of her. And while I was there, again, Mexico, no, paperwork. I was there on vacation basically, and I didn't have any savings. So I was like, I gotta figure out a way to make a living here. So I started selling desserts to our neighbors. We had a community group chat, and one day I was like, what if I just offered some cookies? And then I sold out by the night. So I spent, a little bit of money, invested in some ingredients, and started selling cookies. So the time that I was there, what I would do, my quarantine was spent every day. I would wake up, I would find a recipe that looked fun, I would execute that recipe, I would take photos of the desserts, and then I would post them on the group chat and sell them. By the afternoon, I was sold out. And it was funny, I even learned how to ride a bike, which I'd never done before. And I learned how to ride a bike so I could go around and deliver my little desserts. So that was a really fun
Oh my
time in my
God.
life. And I loved
That's so
it.
cool.
Yeah. It was only temporary, of course, but it was really great. And when I reached the stage, when I'm telling you that a couple years here in the state, and I finally feel like, okay, what's the next step? What do I plan to do professionally? I just kept going back to that time and thinking, wow, that was such a great time. I love doing that. I love the challenge of trying new recipes every day and finding something that kind of fills that creativity part of it, and then having that routine of taking the photos. And I was just thinking about that, like how great would it be? How could I combine these two passions of mine, photography and baking? What could I do? Should I just do baking? Should I just do photography? And then one day, an Instagram ad pops up, and it was the Pretty Focus ad. And I was like, wow, someone's really watching it. This looks absolutely perfect. So if you're wondering if the ads work, they work perfectly because they reached me in this crucial time of my life where I was looking for something very specific. And I remember seeing it and I was like, this sounds too good to be true. This is perfect. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And so that's when I went in and started doing, the research. I did the little course that you guys have in the Facebook and watched pretty much all the grad interviews there. And I was like, yeah, I think that this is going to be my next move because this is what I want to do. This is the answer to what I've been searching and what I've been thinking about. So it
Wow.
was kind of like meant to be.
Wow, I love that you said it was something so specific. You were looking for something so specific, and I
Yes.
really do think that the niche that we are in, I mean, we are like in a niche because food photography is so broad, but like we are in the food blogging niche and working directly
Mhm.
with food bloggers. So there's not leaving your home to, to go to restaurants or, figuring all of that out. You're really working at home. And so it is so
Yeah.
specific. I love that you were like, if only I could make recipes and photograph them. Like,
Exactly.
does something
If
like
I could
this
do this
exist?
random activity that I did a couple years ago and it showed up. And yeah, it's funny. I still like I graduated pretty focused October last year, I believe, or September, late September. And I've been telling my family what I'm doing. And I show them the photos, I tell them the work that I do, and they're still like, but do they send you the hey, did they send you the recipes for you to photograph? And I'm like, no, I have to photograph the whole process and do this and do that. And they're like, oh, and then, but do you sell the cakes? And I'm like, no, it's just part of the job. So they're still trying to understand what the actual niche is. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I was looking for.
That's so funny. We do get those questions all the time. They're like, "But who
Mhm.
sends you the food? How do you get the food?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"You make it." Or
And
I've
they're
had
like,
those where I'm
what?
like, show my family pictures and they're like, "You made that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
made it."
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. Because yeah, it's so specific, like you said, and so people just have the hard time wrapping their mind around
Mhm.
it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, it's
that's so
funny.
funny.
I was
So
having that conversation with my dad the other night, and he knows. I sent him pictures. He knows, and he was like, "What? I just don't understand." And I had to explain it to him again and show him the photos, and he was like, "Oh, I understand now." And I'm like, "Oh,
but then next week he'll be like, "No, okay, no, explain it to me one more time."
yeah." I always feel like I want to be a fly on the wall when everyone asks him, "What does your daughter do? What is she doing?" And he's like, "Uh." I don't think he has any idea of what I do, both with food photography or with my business development manager job. So,
That's too
oh,
funny. Oh my
mm,
gosh. So you're still working your 9 to 5?
I
You're
am. I'm still working it with the goals of not working it.
Yeah.
Even yeah, even though I love the company and it's been a great experience, it's one of those things where it's just not my passion. It's not what makes me happy. And now that I've started doing food photography for bloggers, and I found that niche. I'm working towards hopefully making that a full-time job.
Awesome. So when did you graduate? Or I guess when did you join and then how long did it take you to graduate?
I think I joined, when did I join? I want to say it was September, October of 20. It took me almost a year, not quite a year, I believe.
Okay.
So I graduated in September of 2024, and I went live on the Buyers Club on October 1st. Actually, I
Okay.
remember that very well.
Okay.
Um, so a little bit under a year, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I just scrolled up and I can see your dates.
Hmm.
November 18th,
Hmm.
2023, you graduated September 10th and then announced in the Buyers Club on October 1st. So it took you 11 months to
Hmm.
10 months.
Yep.
10 months.
Yeah,
Like,
I
don't make
can't
me
believe.
math that fast.
That's why
Uh,
I'm like, under a year is a
yeah,
good
under a
answer.
year. I like that. It took you under a year to graduate.
Hmm.
We say that you can graduate in 3 to 6 months.
Hmm.
You were over that at a year. Would you say that's because you were you were working your 9 to 5?
Yeah, absolutely. I am lucky that my 9 to 5 is pretty flexible and I can basically do my own schedule, but I do try to have a 9 to 5 schedule just to have a routine. So I stuck to mostly shooting on weekends.
Okay.
And of course, I really wanted to balance personal life, and the fact that you could do the course at your own pace, it was really helpful because I didn't want to rush it. I didn't want to just, oh, I need to do this fast and graduate in 3 months, because for me personally, it wasn't urgent that I started this. It was more of a journey and something that I wanted to work towards. So I did take some time. And then, of course, during the course, you are being basically graded. So you have to maybe reshoot some stuff and redo some stuff. So that also takes some time. So I think
Mhm.
that's why it took me the time that it took me, which I think it was a good amount of time since I started. So,
I think in under a year is great because knowing that you were working 9 to 5 because
mhm,
something that a lot of people want to know is like the time. How long is it going to take me? Because we have people in your shoes where there's maybe not that urgency and it's something that
mhm,
they want to work towards. It's a goal that they have. But then we have others who are there is a little bit more urgency because they're ready to, they're in a position to where they need to, start bringing in income.
yep,
So do you think that people can get through? Like, do you think that 6-month mark is realistic for people if maybe they're not working 9 to 5 and they
yeah.
have more
And
time?
And I would say even if you're working 9 to 5, but you're really good at managing your time and you put yourself a strict schedule,
Hmm.
then I think it's realistic. So I wasn't as strict. Like every single weekend I have to do a shoot. Maybe one weekend I have plans to go out or something, so I didn't. But if you're like, oh, I have the goal to finish this in 6 months, then if you plan it out and you do a calendar, you put your goals, I do think it's doable. But then I would also say have some flexibility in where you can account for, oh, I might need to do reshoots. Like it's not something that you're just going to breeze through and kind of finish. It takes work and it takes dedication for you to because the coaches, they're gonna make sure that you're doing it right. You know, they're not just gonna let you fly by with just a mediocre photo. So
Hmm.
as long as you're willing to put in the time and the effort that it takes to do that, then I think it's realistic.
Yeah. Now, some people like hearing that might feel a little nervous about somebody's going to give me feedback. I might have to do reshoots. Like, gosh, I don't know if I want to do that. It sounds like too much. It sounds scary. What would you say to that?
I feel like it's the only way that you're going to learn, you know, if you're trying to learn something new, I always say this, no one's born with the knowledge. You know, we all have to put in the work and we all have to learn. So as I was going to school, for me, I saw this as this is kind of my new career. I need to go to a university. And when I went to university, I had to learn and I had to study and I had to reshoot things. So it is, you know, it might be scary, but it's going to be worth it. And I think that the mindset of I am learning something new and I have to give myself the grace of actually putting in that work and knowing that it's not going to be perfect from the start, I think that that would be the mindset to get started with. So don't be scared. It's all part of the process, and the
Yeah.
feedback's only going to make you better. And when
Yeah.
you go out into the buyers club, you want to be, you know, you want to be at that level because it's the only way that you're going to be able to get the business that you want. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean, the level of work our grads are producing is like up here. And if you
mhm,
want to just do bare minimum, you know what I mean? Like, and just like, I'm just going to do bare minimum to, and just
pass.
get away with doing as little as possible just to pass. Like, if
Hmm.
you want to do really well in there, you do have to put in the work. And,
Hmm.
it's funny. I mean, you're coming in with some photography experience. My goodness, you were doing a Nat Geo workshop.
Workshop.
That is insane. That's so cool. I would love to hear more about that. Like, how
Yeah,
cool is
that was
that?
really cool.
I think that sometimes people without like a clean slate, they don't know anything. Sometimes it's easier
Hmm.
for them to go through than maybe somebody who has experience in photography. And I don't say that to scare people. I just say that to just let you know that this is a different niche of photography. Like there are so many
Photography.
different niches of photography. And it would be like me being like, oh, I'm a photographer. I can do landscape.
Hmm. And landscape is a whole other. I always compare this to because when I first started doing photography, you know, people are, oh, you can just do weddings and you can do this and you can do that, and I'm like, it's everything. It's different. It's like asking a neurosurgeon to do a heart surgery or something. Like, of course, not at that level. We're not saving people's lives, but it's the same concept that you study for something. So from my experience, I actually went into the course. I was like, I'm sure it's going to be fine. I'm sure I have plenty of photography experience. And I've actually done so many works. I started taking photos in 2017. And since then, I do workshops constantly. It's one of my things. Every year, I try to do something. So I've done events, I've done portrait photography, I've done all kinds of different workshops. I'd never done food photography. And when I started, I was like, oh, this is different. This is this is something else. There's different rules to composition and there's a different rules to lighting. So it was a lot of new things to learn that didn't necessarily come with my background for photography. So even though I know how to handle a camera and I know how to take photos, it's a different it's a different beast, especially because I mostly do documentary. That's kind of my niche in photography right now. I still do it, but in a different category, let's say. So getting into food photography was like, oh well, this subject doesn't move. He's not good. The subject isn't going to do anything. I have to make it look good, and I have to, you know, do all the styling and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I love like just knowing how to use your camera is just a small part of it.
Yeah, it
It's
really is.
just a small part of it. And so, I mean, we get those questions all the time of like, well, I already know how to take pictures of food. Literally, I had this guy message me on Instagram and he goes, I already know how to take pictures of food. Can you just hire me? And I was like, not how it works, but thanks.
uh,
Thanks for the message.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
another thing. Even if you know how to take pictures for food, you might not know how to take pictures for bloggers. It's a different
yeah,
thing, from maybe just some more commercial work or magazine work or this.
right.
Bloggers have a specific style and a specific set of things that you have to do. So that
Mhm.
is part of the value of the course. It prepares you specifically for this niche of photography, which I think it's a whole category separate from just food photography.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of it, but it's not the same thing, I believe.
Yeah. And you have it like the niche and the way that you photograph is different, but there is something so I think crucial in and knowing the end result. Like, you've got to know the end result and you've got to know your client. And so
Hmm.
that's another reason why it's not just the f-stop is different and the composition might be different, right?
Hmm.
Like, you need to know your clients. You need
Yep.
to know, because the questions you ask your engaged couple for their wedding photos and like the whole questionnaire and everything you need to know and is so different than your client um, and what they need, your blogger and
Hmm.
what they need. And so, people ask me this all the time, and I see this all the time, and they're like, but photography is a saturated market, right? There's so many photographers out there. Everybody can be a photographer. And it's like, it's not the what, it's the who. You've got the wedding
Hmm.
client is so different
Hmm.
than a food blogger, is so different than the magazine.
Yep.
And so all, yes, we all do photography, the really big umbrella, but that's why working within those niches, and if you
It's
get
what's
with a
good.
niche
That's a
within a
good
niche.
part.
And so really understand, so going through Pretty Focus is not just about learning how to use your camera, and it's not just about learning how to photograph food, it's about learning how to work in this industry too. Like,
Absolutely.
people forget that. They don't
Yeah.
think that big picture. I think of
Hmm.
that's what we're doing, is not just teaching food photography, but really teaching them how to be successful in the industry, because you
Exactly.
can't have one
And
without the other. You're going to
you
struggle.
know, that was one of my, I don't want to say like struggles during the course, but it was something that I had to break away from because coming in, especially having a background in photography and custom design and all these things, I'm like, I'm going to do these photos like this and that, and I want to have this style, I want to work like this. And I had to learn that I'm not photographing just for myself or to create a beautiful image. I'm photographing for a client and for a blogger who's probably going to like a certain style.
Mhm.
And so I had to really, so sometimes I would put out these shoes and I would do all these beautiful, I'm a maximalist, so I love colors, I love all things. So I would put a bunch of stuff into the photo, and then coaches would be like, oh, it's beautiful, but it's way too busy. And this is something a blogger is probably not going to like because it's not the focus is not the food. So I had to reshoot that. Or for example, I had when I was working through portfolio, freaking cinnamon rolls were the bane of my existence because I had to reshoot them like 3 times. And I remember the first time it was because I found a recipe and I was like, oh, this recipe looks good. But I didn't realize that the recipe called for only, I think it was like 9 cinnamon rolls instead of a dozen cinnamon rolls. And when I deliver that photo, coach says like, this looks great, but usually like the standard is 12 cinnamon rolls in the tray. So you might want to take a photo for a portfolio because that's what a blogger is going to be looking for. So it was like, that's a tip that maybe I can get away with the fewer cinnamon rolls, but if I really want to make sure that bloggers are going to connect with this photo and that's what they're looking for, 12 cinnamon rolls is
Mhm.
the rule, which is something I would have never thought about. And I thought it stuck with me. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
12
I mean,
cinnamon rolls.
it is true. You're like, well, 9 cinnamon rolls. Some recipes do 9 cinnamon rolls, but most
Yeah,
recipes they do
12.
12.
Hmm.
And we just connect. Like, I'm just even thinking, like, for your family, you're like, well, I can't do 9. I've got, I'm serving 12 people. So I got to find a
You're
new
not
recipe.
getting away with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
that is
photographed a lot
fascinating.
better.
That is fascinating. So when you graduated in October,
Mhm.
you were announced in the Buyers Club, how long did it take you to start working or connect with your first client?
So this is an interesting question because Technically, it took me a day. So I was checking the dates. I was checking the
Okay.
dates of this the other day, preparing for the interview. I was like, oh, let me check on this. So I went back to my Facebook messages because I started talking to a blogger and I checked the date. It was October 2nd. So I was announced on October 1st, and the very next day I was talking to a blogger. I
Wow.
will say that this was a very specific case because this was a blogger that was looking for someone who could do knitting patterns, and I just happened to knit, and I was like, I could probably do this.
That's
So I
right.
yeah, exactly. So I reached out to the blogger and we just happened to have a good, rapport and we were able to make it happen. It did take me a bit to connect with food bloggers and get an actual food blogger, which was a process to get there. But technically, my first client, day after I was announced in the Buyers Club, I was already booked. So that was
Like
really,
knitting.
really exciting. Yeah, knitting for knitting. I remember I was like, so I was a little nervous. I was like, well, I've never really done patterns, but I talked to her and I explained, so this is my experience. I've just graduated. What do you think? We talked pricing, all that. And she was like, all right, let's plan for the whole year. So now we have a project pretty much for the whole year. Every month we're doing something different, which is great because I love knitting. And now I'm like knitting on my weekend and I'm like, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this, which I would have already been doing it. So it really scratches an itch of, of doing my knitting projects. So if I feel guilty for doing it, I can because it's actually part of my job. So that was really exciting.
That's so cool. I love
Hmm.
that. I love that you like the things that you love to do, you're able to get paid for it.
Yeah, that was really cool. And it
That's
also was like, oh wow, there's so many possibilities other than just food photography. We talk about crafting and stuff like that, and I'm doing knitting. So with all the tools that I learned for doing the food photography, I'm still applying them to this different niche, and I can still
yeah.
incorporate that into my business, which is really cool.
Yeah, there's still between crafting and food, yes, it's the subject is different, but
Hmm.
because it's like a tutorial-based food like tutorial-based photography, so you're teaching people how to make or create something, you like making in your kitchen, but you're
Hmm.
also like being very, showing them how to make the craft like you would show them how to make the recipe. So you're
The
using
recipe.
overhead
Hmm.
photos, showing them the tools that they need,
Hmm.
what it looks like, at each phase of the process and what the final image, what the final product looks like. So there are a lot of similarities between craft blogging and food blogging or craft,
Yep.
sessions versus food sessions. So,
Yeah, and I
um,
I apply the same formula. So my material shots I view it as my ingredient shots. So
yep.
I arrange it similarly, and then the process shots. So it's basically the same principle. Your subject changes, so I have to make some adjustments. Thinking about the heroes for knitting is definitely different than thinking about the heroes for food. But I apply the same principle. Okay, how many overheads can I do? How many details can I do? Do I do 45 angle here? Like, how can I play with the subject and put it in a way that I can get some variety? So
Mhm.
it's been fun also to apply those kind of same principles and building blocks that we get for food photography into a different space.
Yeah. And, another difference with the craft is sometimes it's really important, and I don't know for your knitting projects, but to have a lifestyle element to it. So if you're making
Hmm.
something, for the bathroom or whatever, kind of being able to create a bathroom scene, and you can do
Hmm.
this with styling boards too, but just kind of showing like how you would use that item in the the space of your home that makes sense. Right? So,
Yeah, I
in the living
actually my
room,
last one.
on the
Yep.
wall.
The last one I did was like a washcloth kind of thing, which can be used in the bathroom or it can also be used in the kitchen. So I had to create two different sets for that. And it was really mostly using props in a different way. And, for one, I used like a soap bar and some incense and some eucalyptus leaves and stuff that you could find in the bathroom. And then for the other one, I had eggs and, all the different styling that creates a different scene. But yeah, and it's also fun for me, it's really fun to get creative and find different ways. And we have other projects that I know will require different kind of photography and that I might have to get out of the studio and shoot it in different ways. So that's also a lot of fun for me at least. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love it was a day after you graduated, you were able to start, you connected with a client and you said it took you a little bit more time to connect with, was it two other clients or three other clients?
Two other clients that are food photographers, like that are food bloggers. So,
Okay. So how long did it take you to connect with them?
I would say it took me maybe a month or
Okay.
maybe a little bit longer to connect with me. My experience with the Buyer Club is that I had to get creative. I think that I had this expectation that I was going to go in there and I was going to, immediately get bloggers being like, yes, please recreate all my recipes and hire me and I'll give you all my money. And that was obviously not what happened. It's a process. And I feel like you also have to put in the work into that. It is a business and you have to think about marketing yourself and all that. So for the first couple weeks, I was posting a lot and I was trying to figure out what the best times were to post. And I was pretty much posting the same thing as
Hmm.
everyone else, which is I offer recreations. This is my some of the images in my work and all that. And I wasn't getting a lot of traction, or at least not as much traction as I was hoping for.
Hmm.
So I actually went to the grads group and I posted there and I was like, guys, what's everyone doing? What are some advices you can give me? Because I'm really not getting the traction that I was hoping for. Um, so that's another great thing about Pretty Focus is that you have this great community really supporting you and helping you throughout the whole process. I mean, other food photographers, which you would think would be hesitant to help, because we're technically all competition, but it's the opposite. They're really giving you resources and help. So I posted that and I got a lot of comments. And I remember one of them was like, well, by looking at your portfolio, because I posted my portfolio and I was like, can you give me some advice? Maybe I need to change it, add something, remove something.
Hmm.
And one of them was like, I think it looks great. I will say it's a lot of baking. So that's what you love to do. Lean on that. Lean on the fact that you love baking and make that sort of your niche for a food photographer
Hmm.
and then, sorry, for a blogger. And then that's how you'll get probably clients gravitating towards that because there's so many bloggers out there and they all do different things. So you just have to find the blogger that's a good fit for you. So that really stuck with me. And I was like, okay, rather than posting so much, I'm going to try to be a little bit more intentional with my posts. And I'm going to really think it through and I'm going to prepare them and I'm going to try to do things that are similar to what I see because obviously I'm looking at the Buyers Club and seeing what people are wanting and doing, but also that's kind of unique to myself.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
just, yeah, I just so happened to start. Here's the thing about me. I love doing workshops and courses, and I'm always looking for something to do. So I started cake decorating course, and I was like, I'm going to be making these beautiful cakes. I might as well take photos of them and use that to my advantage, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so,
Yes.
mhm. So I started doing that, and I was making these gorgeous cakes. Not to toot my own horn, but they were really pretty. I'm really
They're
proud of
very
them.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Very
So
beautiful.
I would post them into the Buyers Club and I would make a post like, hey, I am educating myself and here's what you get if you hire me. I'm always improving my skills. These are my skill level. I can make this look beautiful. These are the photos that I take. And then I would also post, here's my portfolio. These are the services that I offer and all those details. And
Hmm.
when I started doing that, that's when I started to really get some traction because I'm also posting images that are kind of a wow factor. They're stopping people from scrolling and be like, oh wow, this cake, what is this?
Yeah.
And that's when I started getting a lot of likes and I started getting even bloggers commenting on my photos, which was really exciting. I was like, oh my God. And
That's
that's how I
awesome.
started. Yeah, I started getting people even in my DMs reaching out to me, which was the first time because up to here I was always kind of hunting in the bars club for any bloggers that was posting and I was reaching out to them. And that's how
Yep.
I got my first client. And then I got a couple of clients emailing me and being like, "Hey, I'm interested in your service," and here we are. So it did take a lot of work, on my side to really market myself and try to put myself out there, but it was worth it because now I'm
Yeah.
starting to get some traction and get some clients.
Yeah. So do you feel like even though maybe that expectation of, you weren't, you know, it took you about a month, do you still feel like you had like the tools and the support like to help you get the clients? Like you weren't just left on your own. I think maybe a lot of people have that fear of, well, what happens after
Mhm.
graduation? And like what happens whenever I graduate? Am I left on my own? Am I sent off into the world to figure it out on my own? And what would you say is what is the experience that somebody can expect when they graduate?
Yeah.
Are you
So,
on your own, or do you get support that you need?
no, you totally have the community and the support that you need. You're on your own in the sense that it is your business and you have
Yeah.
to do the paperwork, get your all everything settled. So that is a lot of work. That was one of
Mhm.
my stresses when I graduated. I was like, okay, now I have to actually do this and get
Yeah.
it all together. But I had a whole group of people that would help me through it. Again, when I first graduated, I needed to figure out PayPal, and I need to figure out invoicing and contracts and all that stuff, which we have the guide in the course, which is great, but then you have to do it. So I remember posting on the grads group, and I was like, guys, I just graduated. I need help. What can I do? And then I had a whole bunch of people, including coaches and other grads, that reach out. And actually, one of them, Melissa, she's amazing. She's here in Arizona. She sent me a whole bunch of resources from her own business that
Yeah.
would guide me. And that was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. So definitely you will have someone to help you out along the way. And you can always, and that's something that I always see people posting all kinds of things in the group chat about their businesses, about their life, and how we can help each other. So you're not by yourself. You have a community that will help you and will help you with resources and tools, or just like with being your cheerleaders, which is really great.
Yeah, you need that. I mean, because this is like a solo career. You're kind of working at home, kind of
Hmm.
doing your own thing, and working with people online, and it's like so wonderful. This like the internet, and that we can work online, and that we can connect on social media, but sometimes like I just love, like I tell people I have a love-hate relationship with social media, because it's like, I don't like it, but at the same time it has created so many incredible opportunities for people.
Hmm.
And so even like you can be a solopreneur and you can kind of be working on your own at in your house, but you're still connected to a community. You're still
Yeah,
connected to people.
yeah.
And so, pretty focused, when I ask people like what is pretty focused, I just love hearing everybody's responses. So like what would you say, like what is pretty focused?
For me, Pretty Focus is an education platform and a community that empowers individuals to pursue their passion for photography or for cooking as well, and be able to build a business with that. So you guys give us all the tools and
Mhm.
the knowledge and also the community that we need to really go through that process, which is really great. For me, in particular, I'm an immigrant and I came here. I don't know anything about how to put a business together, about taxes, about nothing. So being able to have those resources has been life changing for me, absolutely. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it is for me. It's just I think it is empowering, more than anything else. I felt like, okay, so this is what I want to do, and it's possible. It gave me the will or the that push that I needed to go for it. So.
Yeah, that's incredible. Because like one thing with pretty focus is that I think course is not the it it doesn't it's not quite fitting,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that's just a small piece of it.
Hmm.
Because we also have the coaching, and we also connect people with clients in our buyers club. And so one thing you have to understand about the buyers club is, like, when you talk about, marketing yourself, the people who are in the buyers club, the bloggers who are in there are warmed and primed, and like they want to be there because they want to connect with,
Hmm.
food photographers. And so I love to hear that you're posting and that you are using your own voice, and you are just really embracing your style and pushing into like who you are as a creative. I think that is fantastic. That is what you absolutely have to do. And so I think that's perfect. But I want, people to understand that there is a difference between like going in a Facebook group and posting whenever you have like a warmed audience versus creating an audience from scratch, like on
Hmm.
social media, or an email list from scratch on social media. Like here, the buyers club. So yeah, you might have to post, a couple of times a week, to get clients. But the fact that you're able to post and talk to a very targeted group of people versus an ocean of people on
Hmm.
social media, like there is still such a difference, in those
Absolutely.
two
Yeah.
things, where you have these clients who are like, they've already said yes. They already said yes to being there. They were like, in like the marketing world, we call them like they're a hot
Yes.
audience, right?
Hmm.
They are like primed. That's why they're there, versus true marketing is like, okay, building your voice from scratch, and who you're
Having to
targeting.
find a needle in a haystack,
Needle,
basically,
that's
because.
exactly
Hmm.
what it is. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Mine was too wordy. Yours was like to the point. It's like social media is like needle in a haystack. How do I find
Yep.
this? Versus like the buyers club. It's like, you have the people who are ready to be there. And so that is,
Yep.
one of the great parts, I think, about Pretty Focus, and why I think it stands out from why
Yeah.
I'm by it. I mean, I
It
think it's
totally, and that was one of the reasons that kind of made me, do it, because when I was reading through the course and the investment guide and all that, I have done, again, I'm a little bit obsessive. So when I started doing photography, I tell you, I think I've done hundreds of workshops and courses and all kinds of them. And not one of them offers you the opportunity to directly connect with clients. So when I saw, oh, this is a possibility, um, this is unique, so that was
wow.
definitely a something that convinced me to do it. And I've always wanted to do my own business. I've always wanted to do something, but I never figure out what that was. And one of the things that would stop me was like, well, how am I going to get clients? Who's going to want to, how am I going to connect with them? How's this going to happen? So Pretty Focus answered that question and kind of solved that problem for me, so that was amazing.
I love that. I love it so much. I love that so much. Like,
Yeah.
it's so cool. So, do you have any regrets?
Not a single one.
And
Not a single one.
what are you excited about for 2025 and the future? Like,
Yeah, so I've done my vision board, or my goals that I want to do for my business. Obviously, the first one is making it into a full-time business, which I know it's going to take some time, but I feel confident that I would be able to do it by the end of the year, if not sooner.
mhm.
I have to get back into, trying to get more, because I'm booked for the whole month, and February is a little busy as well. So I have to get back to work, but I have confidence that I'm going to be able to do this by the end of the year. So that's kind of my main point, because I do want to be able to do this full time and just live my days taking pretty pictures and baking delicious treats. It sounds like the dream.
Yes.
And then also for me, it's about the possibilities, because I never want to be someone that I'm kind of stuck in one place. I want to be able to grow and do different things. So when I first started Pretty Focused, I was like, well, what are other things that I can do? I could photograph a cookbook is definitely one of my dreams, and it's on my bucket list. Working with magazines and stuff like that, and getting back into a little bit of documentary photography as well, incorporate those two words, which I believe I've already been able to do thanks to the Pretty Focused grad community. I
Okay.
remember I went into the group chat. I use the group chat a lot. Just use it. Just post in the group, the Facebook group, because you're gonna get the help, all the help that you need. And I was like, hey, one of my goals in my business is I want to photograph for magazines. I want to do this, this, and that. And I got, again, a bunch of people, hey, you could do this. I did this, and this is what worked for me. And one of them was like, oh, I started working with Edible Magazine, which is a magazine that is pretty much all over the US. And she says, look it up and see if you have a chapter in Phoenix, in Arizona. And it was like, yeah, I looked it up, called them, hey, can I take photos for you? And then I did my first two assignments at the beginning of the year. So goal checked. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about, continuing to do those kinds of outings and those kind of photographies and add that to my portfolio. I'm excited about branching out as well from photography and doing some videography. So started to talk with clients about doing videos. One of my dreams since I can remember is doing stop motion, and I feel like the sweet photography and block photography world really leans into that a lot. I was just looking at Martha Stewart's website, and she has some really great stop motion video
Yeah.
tutorials that were like, okay, this, I want to do this. So adding that into
Oh
my
my gosh.
portfolio, I'm very excited about. So yeah, there's so many things that I might need to calm down a little bit. You
I
can't do
love
it all, but
I love what a visionary you are. You
well, I
know, like
try.
I love that you have an opportunity in your hands and you know what to do with it. Like, I think that you steward what has been given to you and what has been placed in your lap and in your hands. You steward it so well.
Thank you. That's
And
really kind.
and you are like, and you're an encouragement to me to dream,
Yes, I'm so glad to
because
hear that.
we just limit ourselves. I limit myself in like the things that I think are possible. And you are just such a go-getter, and you've like been given this opportunity. You've taken it and you are just running with it. And you're like, I want to do this and I want to do that. And you like use all of the tools that you're given, all of the opportunities that you're given. And like you just dream and you just think like, what do I want to accomplish? And I'm going to go after it. Like, girl, it is
Thank
so inspiring. And like,
thank
I'm
you. Oh my
serious.
God, I'm getting emotional here a little bit
I'm,
because it
I'm
has
like,
been.
I'm getting like a little misty, because just for me, like, I just need to hear people dream. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because dreaming can be hard sometimes.
Yeah, and especially when you're getting caught up in the 9 to 5 and or
Mhm.
in the routine and I think that because of my experience being an immigrant, and that was a really difficult stage because again, you're starting your life over
Yep.
and I didn't know anyone. I again my family was here, but I hadn't seen them in over 10 years. So it was basically me coming to a home, a bunch of strangers and when I came to this point where I'm like, wait, I'm in survival mode. I'm just cruising through life, and that's not why I've made all this sacrifice. I made the sacrifice and I made the decision to stay and start new so that I could do what I want, so that I can, pursue those dreams and those goals. And I've always been very passionate, and I when I love something, I go all out. So yeah, Pretty Focus has given me the chance to really put I think to shape that, because I was like, what so many possibilities, and I was able to find a space where, okay, this is it. I can do this. I can use these tools and use them towards my goal.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's
Wow.
been amazing. No regrets at all.
I love it. You know, and I think that you do offer such a unique perspective, and one that's refreshing. And I think that we need to be reminded of, because you came from, like you said, a country that was not as and I don't know like everything politically, happening in like Venezuela, but it was is not the same. Like it was, there's like some hard things, right?
Yeah, it's not something. So back home, I think the main thing is there's nowhere for me to go. I'm stuck. I'm stuck, and it's not because of me. It's not because I'm not capable of
Mhm.
achieving what I want to do. It's because my surroundings are not conditioned for me to achieve those things, economically, socially. Um, one of the reasons, and this is, I'm going to try to make this a long, short story, but one of the reasons I made the decision to leave, or where I need to leave, was I was just fresh out of university. I had just graduated, and I felt like I'd already done all the workshops I could have done in Venezuela for photography. And I was working in the film industry, and I was so happy making movies and doing all these cool stuff. And then that all stopped because we had the situation where we had a blackout all over the country, a national blackout. So for over a week, we were in the dark ages. We didn't have Wi-Fi, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have
Oh
anything.
my gosh.
And that's something that's not uncommon because every time it rains, what in my apartment, the it rained and the lights would go out. But this was a whole week or more than a week. And so everything collapsed. And I was like, wow, this is I don't want to be in this situation. And then after that, the industry also collapsed because no one wanted to put money into something where the lights could just go out and you couldn't finish your movie or you couldn't finish your video clip. So I was like, what am I going to do? I have to think ahead. I have to think about my future. So that was part of the reason that I decided to move here. And for me, it's amazing being able to do whatever I want to do. And I know that the only thing that's stopping me in this situation would be myself, because I'm in a place where if I want to do something, if I want something, I can go on Amazon and get it. If I want to, so it's a
Oh,
different situation for sure.
so good. And that
Yeah.
perspective of like, I couldn't go anywhere. And I think that like the only thing that is stopping you now is just you. And like we just live in a like we have so many options. We have so many options, and
Yeah.
I think just hearing your story just reminds us of what we have right in front of us and that we can actually do something with what we've been given, like the freedom that we've been given
Mhm.
and the opportunities that we've been given. Are you just going to let them sit by? Because there's so many people, like so many people who would love to have the same opportunities to be able
Yep.
to do and have what we have. And so some of us just let it pass by. And so girl, I'm just
Yeah.
fired up. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that is such a good reminder for me because I seriously forget that I can
Mhm.
dream and I forget about all of those things because something might be hard,
Yeah. And it's
and
easy to do that. I think that we all have our struggles and everyone has their own situations and things that we go through. But stepping back from that and being able to look outside of that at the big picture is something that's great. And then I think Pretty Focus has been a constant reminder of that, because I wouldn't have been able to do this back home, and I have this tool available, and now I feel like the future is bright. I feel like I'm working towards a goal and I can actually I can actually do it.
oh my gosh, I love that. This conversation has been so life-giving to me. You have no idea.
Oh,
It's been
I'm so
so
glad.
good to talk to you. I know we met for coffee and
Yeah.
macarons a couple of months ago, and I can't wait to meet with you in person again when we do our next Phoenix meetup. But holy cow, this has been so great. And I love being able to just share this story with grads, with students, with people who are looking at Pretty Focused and wondering if this is the right thing for them. And I just think, again, your story is so inspiring for any one of those people.
I hope it does
So
inspire a lot of people and
oh,
they get to find something like this, because it's
a
been
hundred,
amazing. So
yeah, 100%. Thank you so much, Danny, for being here. You guys, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Pretty Focused podcast. We will see you back here again for another one soon.